Early June has brought a whole bunch of odds and ends and clues for the future of the Miami Dolphins. We're getting into all of it here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, and NFL staff writer for A to Z Sports. I want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. A couple of odds and ends, formalities, clues, market movement, a little bit of everything here today on the show. And I want to start with a Happy Trails bid to Terron Armstead, who was formally placed yesterday on the Dolphins reserve/retired list. That is a designation for players who have remaining years left on their contract. But when a player retires, you convert them onto that list. It formally retires them, but you retain their rights if they choose to come back because they were under contract to play with your team at the time of their decision to retire. The Dolphins carried Terron Armstead all the way through June 2nd, which allows them to process the retirement of Terron Armstead after that magical June 1st date, and therefore split the salary cap ramifications of Terron's retirement based off of money that he was paid in 22 and 23 and 24 that they broke out into smaller cap installments and obligations and pushed into future years. That will now be whatever he was on the books for this year as far as money he was paid in years past will be this year. And then the rest of the prorated dollars from years past will go into the 2026 cap. The Dolphins will save about $1.3 million in cap space with this move. And of course, open up a roster spot, which everybody's really interested in. What kind of action this Dolphins team is going to take. But a lot of things are waiting, unfortunately, on Jalen Ramsey. But the first move the Dolphins made post-June 1st is the processing of the retirement of Terron Armstead. And here's why I didn't mind why they did it this way. This was when they renegotiated that salary down to the veterans minimum. It was only $1.3 million, which is the only money Miami will save by processing this move now. But it allowed Terron the time he needed while saving the Dolphins cap space in what would only effectively be conducted by restructuring somebody else's contract. B, it gave Terron Armstead grace. Oh, Terron, don't forget, went to New Orleans, played in New Orleans, hit free agency one time and signed with the Dolphins. The Dolphins could have expedited this process and got this roster spot open a lot sooner had they chose to simply cut Terron Armstead with a post-June 1st designation. They didn't cut anybody this year with a post-June 1st designation. It was Xavier Howard last year was the last time that they used a post-June 1st designation on a cut. They chose not to do that to allow Terron Armstead to retire with dignity and retire as a member of the team. And because it really only cost them, you could have cut him outright, not with a post-June 1st designation, and lost $10.7 million in cap space because that's what he'll be on the books for in 2026. Or you could have happily carried him for $1.3 million more than what he would have been to have the open roster spot and then just wait until after June 1st and tip your cap. And he sails off in the sunset. Cam Wolf said he's already lost he's down 30 pounds already. So Terron joins that offensive lineman club of guys who retire and promptly drop a ton of weight. He looks great. I'm sure his body's feeling better as a guy that needs a knee replacement. But that's the formality that's now filed and done. And the two bits of information that are most relevant for the Dolphins off of that is you save $1.3 million in cap space, which it's something. It's nice. It could ultimately end up, you'll replace that player with somebody else who's going to get owed compensation. Do they get up over $1 million in salary? Because that's what your top 51 cutoff is right now. So you might see some cap savings. And if they sign somebody else, you might not see any cap saving when it's all said and done. But at least now the roster spot's open and free for them to make a judgment. And at the cost of doing right by Terron Armstead and allowing him to finish his career without ever being cut, you play long enough in football, you're eventually going to get cut. And Terron can retire and hold his head high and say that he was never subjected to that very popular mechanism because the Dolphins greedily wanted a roster space at the expense of $1.3 million. So those are the two things that play for the Dolphins with Terron, who obviously played 22, 23, and 24 with the Miami Dolphins, ended on a high note, played as many snaps as he played in the season since 2018 or 19, I think. So happy trails in retirement to Terron. That is done. Hopefully now anybody who saw him at OTAs and was like, oh, Terron's coming back, you can put that to bed. Now, I do have an eye on the offensive line market in the event that the Dolphins maybe want to add another name here. Keon Smith's a bit of a wild card as a guy who missed all of last season, but I would like to see the Dolphins sign another name. And we're going to get into movement in need markets next, because for the first time in a while, a notable name that I think is relevant to the Dolphins, because a lot of Dolphins fans have kind of been interested in this name with his connection to some members of the Dolphins team from their time in college together, has come off the market, but not necessarily in the standard way of signing with another team. So we are going to go ahead and dive into that next. And then we're also going to get into Friday's trade with Philadelphia and San Francisco, which was formally announced yesterday, pending a physical, that sends pass rusher Bryce Huff from Philadelphia to San Francisco, and how there may be some clues in how the mechanics of that deal came to be that you should be looking for as the Dolphins look to push play on any trade of Jalen Ramsey in the, quote, according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, days or weeks ahead. That's next here, Locked On Dolphins. Stick with us. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in a single place. And they now have the Post Your Job feature. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip: add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualify candidates. It's no wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. So we saw some movement in two markets of need for the Dolphins this weekend, or I guess Monday. First was Jedrick Wills. I'll start with the offensive lineman who played tackle, right? He was a former top draft choice. A lot of Dolphins fans have had their eyes on potentially adding Jedrick Wills as an insurance piece or a swing player to kind of bolster Miami's depth along the offensive line. But it came out yesterday that Jedrick Wills is going to be sitting out the 2025 season to fully recover from some of the injuries that he has been battling through in the midst of his recent years at the NFL level. This is the first meaningful development that I think we've seen in the offensive line market in a little bit now. And it kind of underscores the general theme of we're waiting for the next wave to start. And as it turns out, maybe all these teams weren't sitting on handshake deals and ready to go. And we're going to get June 1st and free up this cap space. And then we're going to put you on the first plane over and fly in and we're going to sign the contract. We haven't seen that. There has not been a lot of traction. And for Jedrick Wills, it wasn't a player that I was particularly high on individually for a potential ad for the Dolphins. But it is notable because it's the first time in a little bit now that you can reach up with the old Steve Buscemi, right? From, what is it, Billy Madison? Where he reaches up and he crosses the name off the list, right? After Billy calls him and apologizes for bullying him in high school, he hangs up the phone and shrugs and crosses the name off the list on the wall behind him. We can do that with Jedrick Wills as far as candidates for adds to the Dolphins' offensive line. Now, what names are still out there? When I look at what the Dolphins have, a guy that has guard tackle experience is probably the most attractive option left. So names like Brandon Scherf, George Fant, Will Hernandez, they don't do a ton for me because I would want a guy that can play more than one spot. And I mentioned this morning on the Joe Rose Show. The name that's still out there is Daniel Brunskill, who played most recently with the Tennessee Titans, and he played in 2025 or 2024 on a 2-year deal that averaged $3.1 million. He's turning 30. He turned 31 in January, so it's his age 31 season. It's the right kind of player with familiarity in the scheme because he was in Atlanta in 17, and then he went to San Francisco, and he was in San Francisco from 19 to 22, has position flex. That, for me, would be the right kind of add, and it's still out there. So if you're apprehensive about the depth, I'm not pushing panic yet, just like I'm not pushing panic that Jedrick Wills is off because we had no proof of concept of Jedrick Wills playing guard. I would like a utility player to kind of add into the mix. Save me with the Isaiah Wins of the world. So it's just notable that the market's been static in the same way that the cornerback market has been static. And everybody's wondering who that name is going to be that takes that offer from the Dolphins. And I'm obviously highly interested and invested in seeing who that is too. But the name that came off the board was Ronald Darby. And Ronald Darby came off the board not because he signed with a team, but because he's retiring. That was announced yesterday as well. So it's two examples of players at positions of need for Miami. That's the first notable movement. I don't know if you include Quessenberry signing a free agent contract not that long ago. If you include that as notable movement on the market, then I'll stand corrected. But you still have at corner Stephon Gilmore still out there. Rasul Douglas is still out there. Mike Hilton's still out there. Shaq Griffin's still out there. Darby was another big name. He played 10 years in the league, played in Jacksonville last year, 31, retired. You have Asante Samuel Jr., who's still out there as a younger player as well. This market, just like the offensive line market that you may have been eyeing, it's still holding steady. And that's, for me, as we wait for the first domino to fall, which unfortunately is going to have to be a Ramsey move, it feels like. They're not missing the party yet. And for that reason, I'm just patiently waiting, just like the team is, just like everybody is, for this move to happen. And the reason why I think the Ramsey move has to happen first is there's a number of dominoes that can and should fall after Ramsey's off the board, because then you know how much cash you're saving. Right now, if you don't eat any extra salary, you're in line to save $21 million in cash. Do you actually save $21 million in cash? How do you apply $21 million in savings? What happens if you have to eat $5 million in cash to get a pick back that you're happy with? What happens if you need to eat $8 million in cash? What I don't think the Dolphins will do is just pay the entire option bonus and then trade him out. Because that's a $20 million swing when it's all said and done. They obviously wouldn't have to pay the base salary. But it'd be about $19 million more dollars that they would be on the hook for if they chose to pay the whole option bonus. Now, there is a clue with how the Eagles handled Bryce Huff's option bonus, which was kind of the big albatross with moving Bryce Huff. And to Howie Roseman's credit, well, to Howie Roseman's detriment, that was a contract that did not age well. It was a miss for them in free agency. But to Howie Roseman's credit, they got a conditional 5 that could become a 4 from San Francisco for Bryce Huff. And how they went about doing that is a play that from the playbook that I genuinely expect to see the Dolphins utilize when it's all said and done on Jalen Ramsey. So we're going to explore how the Eagles got that trade done, what it means for how the Dolphins can proceed with their business when the time comes with Jalen Ramsey, once they sort through all of these current bidders that they have at the table. and make their move. We're going to get into that next here. Locked on Dolphins. Stick with us. All right. So Bryce Huff was owed about $17 million in cash, and a lot of that was structured to be an option bonus in the same way that Jalen Ramsey is scheduled to receive an option bonus this year. The option bonus is the lump sum payment that's owed and gets treated like a signing bonus that you can then prorate out against multiple years of future salary cap, just like you would a signing bonus, but you don't have to renegotiate or restructure the contract to get it done. Ramsey's option bonus this year is $18.98 million. He's obviously risking the $100,000 workout bonus that he has this year. Whoop-de-doo for him. But he's also currently scheduled to get his base salary of $1.255 million. The $18.98 million lump sum is an option bonus that's due at the start of the season. And then he has $765,000 in like per game active bonuses. If he plays all 17 games, he gets another $765,000. So that's how the contract, as far as the cash that he's owed, shakes out for Jalen Ramsey. The Eagles declined the option bonus, but it's fully guaranteed, just like Jalen Ramsey's. So what that means is it gets converted to base salary. When it gets converted to base salary, that means that's a part of the cash schedule that you're not guaranteed in a single check by a certain date, but you get paid that in equal installments, 1/17 of it, just as an example, if you got paid once a week for 17 weeks throughout the course of the season. They then converted a portion to it and restructured, with air quotes, the contract to pay a portion of what had been converted from an option bonus to a base salary into a new signing bonus, and then converted the rest of it back to another option bonus that the 49ers are now taking on to pay a prorated out schedule for a smaller amount. So it's not like you could just write the check and say, here, take this, scrape this off the top of your option bonus, Jalen. We're going to pay $5 million. So now you're owed $13.98 million. You have to decline the option, convert it to base salary, then restructure the contract before you formalize the trade. That's how the Eagles got it done with Bryce Huff. And the Eagles ate about $9 million, which means the 49ers are on the hook for about $8 million for Bryce Huff. So Bryce Huff, who played 250 snaps last year and had like a sack and a half with an IR stint, and does not play the run, is a designated pass rusher, right? And never played 600 snaps in a season. That player on an $8 million salary got a conditional 5 that can go to a 4. If I'm the Dolphins, that's the launch point for me. I think the floor should be a 4. And whether or not Jalen Ramsey is worth moving for a 4 is really, it's not the point. This is happening, whether we think it should happen or shouldn't happen. But I know for me personally, if my wife sleeps with my neighbor and shoots my dog and threatens harm to my kids, I'm not going to make it work with her because her name's on the mortgage and she's got a nice salary. I'm not going to do that. You've reached an untenable nature to just figure it out because he's under contract. So you take the opportunity to get the best opportunity that you can, and that's what the Dolphins are in the process of doing now. But the Eagles have provided the blueprint of, when you structure a contract like this, this is how you offload a portion of the salary. So I would expect the Dolphins to do the same. But from a compensation perspective, I get Bryce Huff's a younger player, but Jalen Ramsey, who will turn 31 in October, be a hard pill to swallow for me to see their Dolphins get less than at least a 4, if not a conditional 4 that could elevate and go higher. You might have to pay some of the salary to make that happen. But if the Eagles or if the 49ers are trading a conditional 5 that goes to a 4 for Bryce Huff on $8 million salary, when just during the trade deadline this past season, Josh Uche, who profiles a similar profile player, was on a $3 million salary and had half of it paid by New England, and then still got traded to Kansas City for a future 6. Howie Roseman won the deal in him getting rid of his mistake with Philadelphia to get the 49ers to take that. Here's the other piece of this that's really interesting to me. They found a buyer, but how they found the buyer was they found a coach that had success with Bryce Huff in a different spot. Okay. But the other thing that they did, this is where the 49ers have it in their back pocket. The 49ers are projected to collect 2 4s and a 5 in the comp pick formula. Oh, dreaded comp picks are back. But sure enough, the 49ers lost Talanoa Hufanga. They lost Javarius Ward. They lost Aaron Banks in free agency. They didn't really replace any of those 3 guys as far as market contracts that qualifies compensatory pick, qualifying players. So the 49ers could say, hey, we'll trade a conditional 5 that could be a 4, because if it's a 5, we're projected to get a compensatory 5 back for Javarius Ward. If it's a 4, we're projected to get multiple 4s back, 1 for Talanoa Hufanga and 1 back for Aaron Banks, who signed a $19 million per year contract in free agency. So if you're looking for who has the wiggle room, you're looking for teams that maybe already have multiple picks in that area of the draft, like the 4-3 range. You're looking for teams that obviously have the cap space, have the motivation. The Rams are a team that has been tied. It's been quiet on the Rams front recently. Some of that might be because of the cash that's owed. But you start looking through the names of who's out there that maybe is going to be collecting comp picks. Dallas is scheduled for a 5. That's a team to watch. The Rams are scheduled for a 6. Philadelphia is scheduled for a 4 and a 5. And I wouldn't rule out Philly doing anything because they do anything all the time. I don't know that there's a low-hanging fruit name here that will jump in on behalf of the Dolphins, but it is at least worth noting that there are some teams that have been rumored or tied to this market who are projected to get additional compensatory picks in the middle rounds that might make them more willing to accept moving a player. And Philly, they're also getting a 3 for Milton Williams is what they're scheduled for. Now, obviously, that's, as the Dolphins found out the hard time last year, that could be playtime dependent. But just another thing to kind of to put in the back of your mind as the Dolphins try to find this resolution to this Jalen Ramsey saga. The Eagles found a team that had a coach with a connection to the player, and then that team was also scheduled to recoup multiple picks via the compensatory formula in a range of the draft where the compensation was willing to go, and that in turn helped spur getting a deal done for a price point that was more favorable than maybe what you would have guessed at the beginning when it was all said and done. I don't know that the Ravens are going to be in on this, but they're projected for 2 5s. And 2 7s. They're going to get 4 picks. And DaCosta loves his draft picks. So that's another name that I would have soft circled. The Steelers getting a bunch of draft picks as well, but I don't know that they would necessarily be in on Ramsey from that perspective. So we wait. The wait continues. But at least now you know the mechanics of a contract and how to convert the salary, to pay the salary, to convert it back and ship them out. And maybe you'll get a better pick than you think. And that's what the Eagles did with Bryce Huff. And that's what the Dolphins can now hope to do with Jalen Ramsey. That's going to do it for us here today on the show. Kyle Krabs, keep it locked in right here on Locked On Dolphins, your team every day. Appreciate you guys for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day. Go Fins. I'm out of here.